Hello and welcome back to the world of the spirit consciousness. This is the continuation of the book study on the astral body and other astral phenomena. We are now commencing module 10, which deals with after death life. The contents of this chapter are drawn from chapter 12, 13, 14, and 15. In this particular subsection, we will be discussing about death itself. So this particular module, the after death life, has been split into various topics again. We will be covering death, Kamaloka, which is the world of desires. We'll be discussing the entering and awakening in the astral plane, the description of life in the astral plane, having a blissful afterlife, factors affecting nature of after death life, and the duration of the after death astral life. Diving straight into the first part of the topic about death, this again is subdivided into various subsections. We'll discuss death and reincarnation, the process of death, a quick recap on the desire elemental, the restructuring of the astral body by the desire elemental, the impact of the regrouping, the wearing away of the astral body, and how the rearrangement of the astral body can be avoided. Coming into death and reincarnation. So again, this has been split into toss-up topics. We'll have an initial introduction. We'll discuss some misconceptions about death and the objective of incarnation. The initial introduction. So in this book, we are not discussing the part of after-death life spent in the heaven world or the mental plane. However, to completely understand the working of astral body on the astral plane, it is important to note that the astral life is majorly a transitional stage in the entire cycle of life and death, and it is a planning for life on the mental plane. Coming to the misconceptions about death. So, the first and most important truth to understand is that the after death life is not a drastic change but a continuation of the physical plane life with some changed conditions. So I'll just repeat that the after death life is not a drastic change but a continuation of the physical plane life but with some changed conditions. This is so true that after people die and enter the astral plane, they don't realize that they have passed away from the physical plane. Even after they realize it, they cannot immediately understand the difference between the astral and the physical world. This is despite a strong belief in the immortality of the soul. Some people misunderstand their consciousness as a strong proof of being alive. So continuing on this, some parts of someone who hasn't heard of the astral life earlier may be somewhat unsettled to find himself herself in the completely abrupt situation. Eventually, they accept the situation with the belief that it is important and cannot be avoided, although they don't understand it. This brings us to an important understanding that there are no external rewards or punishments. Whatever it is only the result of whatever the individual has thought, spoken, and done in their physical lifetime. Finally, the objective of incarnation. So, as discussed earlier, a physically deceased individual is constantly withdrawing into himself or herself. The entire cycle, the entire cycle of life and death can be compared to an ellipse whose lowest portion only proceeds into the physical world. Let me put this up by a diagram. So the entire process of life and death is like an ellipse, and the lowest portion is what proceeds into the physical world. So in the first part of cycle, the ego is putting itself forth into matter. The central point of the curve must be a middle point in the physical life when the rush of ego has used up its outward force and starts turning inward to begin the long procedure of withdrawal. So, this is the starting point. It pushes itself down into matter. Here's a physical life, and then after having spent all of itself, it starts withdrawing and turning inward. Hence, each birth can be called a movement of the ego situated in the higher end of the mental planes outwards into the lower ones. The ego lets out the soul as if it is an investment. The ego expects the investment to return with new and advanced experiences and qualities within itself. So having seen the objectives of incarnation, let us now quickly have a look at the process of death. So death is again this has been subdivided. So death as a process of peeling of layers. It is usually painless and peaceful. There is a review of life at death, and we'll discuss how the astral body appears after the death of the physical body. Coming into death as a process of peeling of layers. So at the time of death, the consciousness leaves the physical body and enters the etheric double for some time and then enters the astral body. Hence, death is the process of peeling off layers. The ego, which is immortal in people, peels off the various external layers one after another. Death is usually painless and peaceful. Usually, the real death seems to be completely painless, even if the individual has died in agony of a terrible long ailment. The calm face of the deceased strongly proves this statement and has been testified by those who were asked this question instantly after death. The state of consciousness immediately after death is gentle and peaceful. So, for some moments, there will be a state of unconsciousness. However, it can last for a few seconds to a few weeks. Coming to the review of life at death. So, at the time of death, even if it is sudden, people visualize in detail the entire past life before themselves. So, within a second, people visualize the entire chain of causes which have been active in their life. They see themselves as they are in a simple and straightforward way, bereft of flattery and self deception. They understand their life as a spectator, looking down at the arena they are quitting. So, the appearance of the astral body after the death of physical body, the natural pull between the physical body and the astral counterpart is very strong. Even after death, the astral body stays in its usual shape out of habit. As a result, the person's physical appearance won't change. Since astral matter can easily be shaped by thoughts, if a person thinks they were younger at the time of death than their actual age, the dead physical body may appear to be slightly young. A short time after death, usually a significant change occurs in the structure of astral body due to action of the desire elemental. So, coming to the discussion on the desire elemental, we'll have a quick recap over here. So, Astral body is partially made of elemental essence. This essence is alive but not intelligent. And for the lifetime of the astral body, it is separated from the normal mass of the astral essence for some time. So I'll just explain what it means over here. So consider this as the astral body. This is the mass of elemental essence. Just consider it like a sea, elemental essence. Now, the astral body, when it is formed, a part of the elemental essence is used in making this and therefore forms the astral body. Now, while the astral body is alive, some bit of elemental essence that is over here is separated from the normal mass of astral essence. So, without any intuition, foresight, or reasoning, it looks for its own wishes and shows a lot of ingenuity in achieving what it wants and advancing its evolution. For the elemental, evolution means descending into matter. Its goal is to become a mineral monad. Hence, its motive is to get as close as possible to the physical and to feel as many coarser vibrations as possible. It has no knowledge and cannot have any knowledge of the person whose astral body it is living in at the time. It wants to maintain its discrete life and feels that it can continue to do that only through connection with a person. It is aware of the person's lower mind and understands that greater the mental matter that it can entangle with itself, the astral life will be longer. Pretty creepy, right? So the restructuring of the astral body by the desired elemental. So when the physical body dies, it regroups its matter in concentric shells or rings, the most coarse matter being outside. Remember, the most coarse matter being outside. So if I just put it quickly, so consider this is the normal astral body of a person when alive. When the physical body dies, the astral matter is attempted to be regrouped in concentric shells or circles, the coarsest being outside and the finest being inside. This is because it knows that its discrete life will have has a restricted lifespan and the person's astral death will occur soon. So this is done to ensure that the astral body lives for as long as possible. When the coarsest matter is outside, the astral body can live longer as it can withstand greater friction. So the name of this regrouped astral body is Yatna. In a wicked person whose astral body is predominantly made of the coarsest matter, it is known as the Dhruva or the strong body. So let us discuss the impact of the regrouping. The grouping of the astral body occurs over the surface of the physical body's counterpart and not over the surface of the surrounding ovoid. Let me repeat. The grouping of the astral body occurs over the surface of the physical body's counterpart and not over the surface of the surrounding ovoid. The impact of this is that the usual complete and independent circulation of astral matter is restricted. Also, the person can only acknowledge the vibrations received by the most external layer of his or her astral body. Hence, the person is trapped in a box of astral matter and can see and hear objects only of the lowest and coarsest planes. So, in spite of living amongst high and lovely thought forms, the person would be nearly unconscious of them. And this is because his or her astral body's matter, which is capable of responding to the high vibration, are closed off where they cannot be accessed. The individual can only feel coarse matter of other people's astral bodies and is completely unaware of his or her own incapabilities. As a result, he or she would believe that the people they are looking at only have poor traits which the person is able to see. Because such individuals are receptive only to the lowest and coarsest matter, the people around them seem to be terrible. In such a situation, individuals undoubtedly think of the astral world as hell. A desire elemental rearranging the astral body has no impact on the recognizability of the form inside the ovoid. However, the natural changes which occur overall make the form appear more hazy and spiritual with the passage of time. The reasons for this will be explained in the coming slides. So, having discussed the impact of regrouping, let us see the wearing away of the astral body. So, the outermost ring or the shell decays with the passage of time. Hence, a person can then be receptive to vibrations of the higher level of astral plane and rises to the next subplane. This continues from one subplane to another subplane. On each subplane, the stay will be equivalent to the quantity and the activity of matter in the astral body from that subplane. The notion of a person rising from one subplane to another is not literal in terms of movement in space. Instead, it is the moving of the consciousness from one stage to another. A person with a rearranged astral body focuses his or her consciousness from the outer ring to the one immediately next to it. Hence, eventually the person stops responding to vibrations of one level of matter and then responds to a higher level of vibrations. As a result, one type of world with its view and people will wither away from his or her view to reveal another world. So, as the shell withers slowly, physical objects become more and more light and thought forms become more and more clear to the person. During this procedure, if an individual meets another individual at intervals, it would seem as if the other person's character is constantly getting better. This is because of the individual himself or herself is responsive to the higher vibrations of that nature. As a matter of fact, the regrouping of the astral body continuously interferes with a person's real vision of friends at all levels of astral life. Now we see that this is a problem, the rearrangement of the astral body, and this can be avoided. So let us discuss this briefly. The procedure of regrouping of the astral body occurs with most people and can be avoided by a person who sets his or her will to resist it. Anybody who understands the circumstances of the astral plane must completely disagree to the regrouping of the astral body by the desire elemental. In this way, the astral body's particles will stay intertwined like it is in life. So as a result, rather than being restricted to a single subplane at one time, the person will be relieved of all subplanes based on the makeup of his or her astral body. So the elemental will try to discourage an individual from not rearranging because it is afraid in its own strange semi-conscious way and will shift this fear to the individual. If the rearrangement has happened already, there is yet a possibility of the situation to be broken by an individual who wants to help the person. The person can hence be helped so that she or he can work freely on the entire astral plane rather than being restricted to only one level. So someone who has not allowed his astral body to be rearranged finds it less crowded and free to roam in the whole astral world. This is because the astral world is a lot bigger than the physical world and much less populated. This is something that has gone against what we've said earlier, but this is how it is appearing in the book. So let's proceed. The average astral life is shorter than the average earth life. Along with the dead, the astral world contains one third of the living people who are asleep and have temporarily left the physical body. The entire astral plane is open to all who reside there and have not allowed the rearrangement of their astral body. However, most of them stay close to the Earth's surface. So, with this, we have come to the end of the section on death. In the next video, we will be covering the Kama Loka, which is the world of desire, and the entering and awakening in the astral plane. Stay tuned.